The coffee cup sat on the side table next to my chair. A thin film had formed on top of it, the kind of skin that only shows up after hours. I could not tell if the cup was from this morning or last night. I sat very still and looked at it, because looking at it was easier than looking around the room. The room was big and quiet. A grandfather clock ticked in the hall. A wool rug, soft and old, stretched under my feet. I rubbed my thumb along the strap of my purse, the cheap leather one I'd bought at a Target in Greenville before I drove up. My Subaru was parked on the street. The Subaru was 2008 and needed a new alternator, which I could not afford yet. I thought, if I take this job, I'm the one who throws that cup out, not the one who drinks it. That single thought told me everything about the life I was about to step into. The interview was for a live-in housekeeper. The Craigslist ad had been short, references preferred, quiet household. The address was a Tudor house in a wealthy suburb of Charlotte. The mailboxes on this street were brick. Some had tile inlays. My Subaru looked smaller and older the longer it sat at the curb. A woman walked in. She was in her late 60s. She wore soft cashmere, gray, and a pair of leather flats that probably cost more than the cash in my checking account. Her hair was white and short. She looked at me the way a person looks at a list. "Mira," she said. "Yes, ma'am. I'm Eleanor Whitcomb. Please sit. You are sitting. Good." She did not smile, but she did not frown either. She asked short, exact questions. How long had I cleaned houses? Could I cook simple meals? Did I have a driver's license? Did I smoke? "No, ma'am," I said. "Have you cared for an older person before?" I lied a little. I told her I had taken care of my grandmother for years. My grandmother died when I was 12. The lie came out easy. I had already started lying to myself about who I was in this house, and I hadn't even unpacked. A small movie played in my head while she talked. 1 year ago, a small office in Greenville, divorce papers, a husband who left me with $4,200 in credit card debt, and a dead Subaru battery. I did not say his name in my head. I had stopped saying his name out loud at all. "The pay is $1,800 a month," Eleanor said. "Room and board are included. You'd live in the small bedroom off the kitchen." I did the math. 1 year and the debt would be gone. "It's just temporary," I told myself. The phrase felt good. I would say it again many times. "I'll take it," I said. "Walk with me," Eleanor said. She led me through the house. Each room had a different kind of silence. We passed a long dining room, a study with leather chairs, a back staircase. Near the staircase was a small reading room. A man was sitting inside, a paperback open on his knee. "This is my younger son, Theo," Eleanor said. "He's staying with me for a while." Theo looked up. He was 32, maybe. Thin, but not weak. He had a long pale scar across the knuckle of his right index finger. He said, "Hi." "Hi," I said. That was the whole conversation. Eleanor turned to keep walking. I followed, but before we left the doorway, I glanced back. Theo was still watching me, not the way men sometimes watch women, slower, like he was trying to remember something he had forgotten. That night, I sat on the small bed in the small bedroom off the kitchen. The mattress was firm and clean. A radiator clicked. I had a duffel bag and a phone charger and not much else. Earlier, on the way to my room, I had passed Theo in the hallway. We talked for a minute about the weather. He mentioned, in passing, that his father had died in 2018. Both of us came home for that, he said. He didn't say more. I didn't ask. I lay in bed and thought about it. Both of us came home. Theo had been home before, when his father was dying, and now he was home again. Why had Theo returned home this time too? 6 weeks later, the routine had set its shape. I woke at 6:30. I made Eleanor's breakfast in the big kitchen. Greek yogurt, a single slice of dry toast, half a grapefruit. She read the Wall Street Journal at the table and rarely looked up. When she finished, she would say, "Thank you, Mira," in the same flat tone, as if reading the words off a page. Preston, the older son, lived in a glass condo in downtown Charlotte. He showed up only on weekends, in tailored sweaters and shoes that squeaked on the wood floors. He called Eleanor mother and called me nothing at all. He spoke to me only when he wanted more ice in his drink. Theo had slipped out of the schedule. He didn't have a job. He didn't have visitors. He drank black coffee and read in the backyard. He nodded when he saw me. Sometimes he asked how I was. He never asked anything that needed a long answer. I was grateful for that, although I couldn't say why. One Saturday in late April, he caught me in the hallway. "Mira, can I ask you a favor?" "Sure. I'm trying to build a small greenhouse out back. Nothing fancy, just a frame and some plastic panels. I can't quite manage it alone." He said it casually, but he didn't look at me when he said alone. I noticed that. I noticed a lot of small things in that house. "Okay," I said. In my head, I told myself, it's just to fill the afternoon. We worked together for the next 3 weeks. Theo carried less than I did. He stopped more often. He drank water in long, slow sips, but he was funny in a dry way I didn't expect. He taught me the Latin names of the plants. He said Solanum lycopersicum for tomato. He said it with a straight face. "Tomato is officially a fruit," he told me one afternoon, "but if you put it in a fruit salad, you're a monster." I laughed. It was the first real laugh I'd had since the divorce. I hated that I remembered. He kept a small notebook in his back pocket. He wrote things down all the time. What we planted, where, when. Sometimes he handed me a glass of water and his hand shook. I pretended not to see it. I was good at pretending not to see things. I had spent a year not seeing things. Theo never asked me about my ex-husband. I did not understand at first why this felt like a kindness. He asked about my hometown instead. He asked about a creek I had fished in when I was a kid. He asked if I had ever been to Asheville. "Once," I said. "On a school trip." "You'd like it now," he said. "There are old places up there that grow things you can't grow anywhere else. Maybe one day." He smiled at the dirt. "Yeah, maybe one day." Late one evening, I caught him on the back porch alone. He was vaping. The vape smelled like vanilla. He saw me and gave a small shrug. "I quit cigarettes 10 years ago," he said. "Started this last year. Don't tell anyone." "I won't." He looked at me a beat too long. The porch light made his face look softer than it was. "You don't talk much," he said. "I like that. I'm paid to be quiet. You're paid to clean. Quiet is free." I walked back to my room. Something shifted in my chest. I pushed it down. He's the employer's son. I'm the help. This is just the afternoon. The phrase was starting to sound thin, even to me. I told myself I shouldn't let my guard down. I'd let it down once before, with my ex, and it had cost me $4,200 and a year of bad sleep. I knew how to figure out a routine. I knew how to put up with quiet. I did not know how to be careful around a man who looked at me like that and asked nothing. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen and found Theo struggling with a glass jar. Pickles, an ordinary thing. He held the jar in both hands against his chest. His right hand shook. He set the jar down on the counter. He picked it up again. The shake got worse. He set the jar down a second time, and his face did something I had never seen on him. Real fear. Quick, then gone. He looked up and saw me in the doorway. "It's fine," he said, too fast. Stiff lid. I walked over. I took the jar. I twisted. It opened easily. "Thanks," he said. He took it back and walked past me toward the reading room. His coffee cup trembled in his other hand all the way down the hall. I watched him until he was out of sight. The smell of vanilla was still on his sweater. The pickle jar sat between us on the counter. I closed it again, slowly, and put it back in the fridge. It was late May when I found the bottle. I was cleaning Theo's private bathroom, which was a small suite off the east wing. He kept it tidy, a thin blue towel, a bar of plain soap, a toothbrush in a glass. I opened the medicine cabinet to wipe down the inside. There was a small orange prescription bottle on the top shelf. Riluzole 50 milligrams. I didn't recognize the name. I closed the cabinet. I stopped. I opened it again. I took out my phone. I typed the word into Google. I would hate myself for this later, but I did it anyway. The first sentence on the screen said it plain. Riluzole is used to treat amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. I sat down on the edge of his tub. I didn't cry. I just sat. Everything snapped into place, in a way. I wished it hadn't. The shaking hand. Theo tired after 20 minutes in the yard. Eleanor watched him when he didn't notice. Preston spoke to him slowly, the way you speak to someone already mourned. He had returned home to die in his childhood house. The sentence formed in my head, fully made. I put the bottle back exactly where it had been. I lined up the label the way it had been. I finished cleaning. I wiped down the mirror twice because my hands needed to keep moving. I went downstairs. I avoided him for a week. I found 100 reasons to be in another room. He noticed. Of course he noticed. On the 7th evening, he knocked on my bedroom door, but didn't come in. He sat on the floor in my doorway. He didn't cross the threshold, and that small choice meant more to me than I'd like to admit. "Did you find something in my bathroom?" he said. I nodded. He gave a half smile. "Sorry, I should have hidden it better. Or, told you. How long?" Diagnosed in November. Symptoms started about a year before that. "How long do you have?" He looked at the carpet. "They say 2 to 4 years. Mom thinks I'll prove them wrong. Preston wants me in a clinical trial up in Boston. I don't want trials. I want a greenhouse." I held back tears, although I'm not sure why I bothered. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," he said. "I came home because I wanted to die in the house I was a kid in. I didn't expect." He stopped. He didn't finish. I knew what he was going to say. I didn't ask him to finish it. He stood, slowly, with one hand on the doorframe. "Good night, Mira. Good night." He left. I sat on the bed and listened to my own breathing for a long time. That night I told myself, in the dark, the same things I had told myself every night for 2 months. He's still your employer's son. You're still the help. He is also dying. Whatever this is, it can't become anything. I had been hurt once. I had decided, somewhere quiet, never to choose anything again. The next morning, I walked out to the yard. Theo was already there, kneeling next to a row of seedlings. He looked up. "We should plant the basil before June," he said. "Okay." We worked as if nothing had happened, but something had cracked open between us, and we both knew it. That night, walking back to my room, I passed the reading room. Eleanor was standing in the doorway, still as a portrait. The lamp behind her made a long shadow on the rug. "Mira," she said, "would you have tea with me tomorrow morning, before breakfast?" It was phrased as an invitation. It was not an invitation. "Yes, ma'am," I said. I went upstairs. I lay in bed. I did not sleep until almost 4. I came downstairs at 6. Eleanor was already in the kitchen. The kettle had just clicked off. She poured Earl Grey into 1 cup. Just 1. She did not pour a second. She gestured at the chair across from her. I sat. There was no cup in front of me. The whole power of the conversation lived in the empty space on the table. I noticed. She wanted me to notice. "Theo told me you found his medication," Eleanor said. Her voice was slow and level. I nodded. "He's also told me he's fallen in love with you. He told me last night. I didn't know what to do with my hands. I put them flat on my lap. I'd like to be honest with you, Mira. I'm not a villain in this story. I love my son. I want him to be loved, but I want you to think very carefully about what comes next." She slid a thick envelope across the table. I opened it. Inside was a typed offer, $25,000 a year, plus everything I needed, a place in this house for as long as I'd like. She didn't use the words wife or girlfriend. She used stay through everything. The contract used even after 3 times. I read the word after twice before I understood. It was a care contract written by a woman who had hired lawyers her whole life. "Why are you offering this?" I said. Her voice didn't change. "Because I know my son. He'll ask you to marry him. He will. I won't say no to him. I want him to have whatever happiness he can. But marriage gives you legal rights to this estate. Preston will fight it. There will be lawyers. It will get ugly while my son is dying. I want to spare him that, and I want to spare you that." I understood then. Eleanor wasn't forbidding the love. She was forbidding the marriage. "What if I refuse?" I said. "Then I'll respect that. I won't fight you, but Preston will. He's already preparing. I need to think." She nodded once. She took a small sip of her tea. I walked out the back door. The grass was wet. Theo was already in the yard, tilting his face toward a basil seedling. 2/3 of his life lived in those leaves. He turned when he heard me. He took a breath. "Mira," he said, "I want to ask you something." I knew. I had known before I walked out. He didn't kneel. His knees weren't reliable anymore. He just said it. He said he wanted to marry me. Not because of his family, not because of paperwork, because he loved me and he was running out of time. His hand shook the whole time he spoke. He was embarrassed about the shake. I was the only one in the world who wasn't. When he finished, I just looked at him. Theo, I said, your mother offered me $25,000 a year to stay without marrying you. He didn't get angry. He looked tired in a different way. Of course she did, he said. And then? Take it. It's a good deal. I'm not taking it. And I'm not marrying you either. His face changed. What? I knew how the words would sound. I said them anyway. If I take her money, I'm a paid caretaker. If I marry you, I'm part of a fight you don't have time for. Either way, I become something. I just want to be the woman who loves you. That's it. No paper. No deal. He swallowed. After. What happens to you? After? I'll figure it out. He looked at me a long time. The wind moved his hair a little. You're stubborn, he said. I learned the hard way. Will you stay? While I'm here? Until you don't need me anymore. He nodded. He fell apart for 1 second. Just his face. Just a small private collapse. And then he put it back together. He put his hand on mine. The shake was worse than any other time I had felt it. I did not pull away. I held my hand still under his and let it shake against my palm. We should plant the basil, he said. Yeah, I said. We planted the basil. Inside the house, Eleanor stood at the back window. I saw her for 1 moment between rows. She did not move. She watched, and her face was the face of a woman counting something painful in her head. Later that night, I sat on my bed and wrote a letter to myself. I did not send it. I wrote, I am choosing love that costs me everything. I don't know if this is brave or stupid, maybe both. I folded the page. I walked out to the back porch in my socks and slipped the letter into the back of Theo's plant notebook between 2 pages of shaky writing about cucumbers. I closed the notebook. I went back to bed. I did not cross any bridges that night. Theo had said the phrase once that afternoon, lightly, the way he said most things. We'll cross that bridge, as if there would be time. We both pretended there would be. 8 months later, I was standing in a motel parking lot on Tunnel Road in Asheville. There was a Subaru behind me with 230,000 miles on it. There was a duffel bag in the back seat. There was a notebook on the passenger seat. It was mid-January, and the first thin snow of the year was just starting to fall. Let me back up. I stayed. I did not take Eleanor's $25,000 offer. I kept my regular maid's salary, $1,800 a month, and did the work of 2 roles, housekeeper by day, caretaker by night. After a few weeks, Eleanor stopped pouring 1 cup. After a while, she poured 2. We didn't talk about it. Theo went downhill faster than the doctors had said. By October, he couldn't walk on his own. By December, he couldn't speak clearly. He used a small alphabet board the hospice nurse had brought. I read to him in the evenings the Latin names of plants, mostly because he liked hearing them said out loud. Solanum lycopersicum, ochimum basilicum, lavandula angustifolia. He smiled at the long ones. He died one morning in early January. Quiet in his own bed, I was beside him. Eleanor was beside him. Preston arrived 30 minutes after. The funeral was small. I wore the best black dress I owned, which wasn't much. I didn't sit in the family pew. I didn't ask to. I sat near the back with the hospice nurse, who held my hand once during the service and did not say anything. She was a kind woman, and I never saw her again. After the funeral, Eleanor came to my room. She had aged 10 years In 8 months, visibly, unfairly. She held a sealed envelope in her hand. "I'd like you to take this," she said. "He left it for you. In his will," he insisted. I opened it. A check for $50,000. I looked at the check. I looked at her. I looked at the check again. "Take it, Mira," she said. "Please. I won't fight you on this." He was very clear. I put the check on the table. "I'll take 5,000, I said. She blinked. "Why?" "5,000 pays off my credit card debt. The rest belongs to him, or to you, or to a charity he liked. Not to me." She tried to argue. I didn't let her. My voice was very small, but very steady. And I think the smallness was what made her stop. "If I take all of it," I said, "I become what your offer would have made me. I want to leave with nothing but what was real." She did not fully understand. She probably never will. But she nodded once. She wrote out the smaller check I asked for. She didn't try again. I packed in under an hour. A duffel bag, the plant notebook, a small, clean stone Theo had picked up in the yard one afternoon and put in my hand for no reason I ever asked about. I had stopped saying it's just temporary somewhere around month 4. I wasn't sure when. I put my keys in the ignition. I drove west out of Charlotte. I went up I-40 into the Blue Ridge. The mountains rose slow and gray on both sides. I had no plan beyond the gas in the tank. Asheville was where Theo had wanted to build a real greenhouse after his family. He had said so on a hot afternoon in May. There are old places up there that grow things you can't grow anywhere else. I remembered. I drove past a small lot on a side street. B&G Greenhouses. A handwritten sign on the door said "Help Wanted, Inquire Within." I pulled over. I didn't think about it. I walked in. An older man stood behind the counter. A radio played something country and quiet. The whole shop smelled like wet potting soil and pine. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he said. "Are you hiring?" He looked me up and down. "You know plants?" I put Theo's notebook on the counter. I said, "I learned from someone." The old man flipped through the notebook. He did not rush. His finger stopped on a page near the back. There was a row of shaky, almost unreadable handwriting. "Solanum lycopersicum is still a fruit. Don't put it in fruit salad." He read it twice. He didn't ask whose handwriting it was. He didn't need to. He closed the notebook. He pushed it back across the counter. "Can you start Monday?" he said. Yes. I walked out of the greenhouse. The snow was small and quick and didn't stick. It melted on the asphalt as soon as it landed. I stood there a moment. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed. I got into the Subaru. I closed the notebook. I drove west on Tunnel Road. The snow kept melting before it could land.
That greenhouse man didn't ask whose handwriting it was. He just read "Don't put it in fruit salad" and said, "Can you start Monday?" I wasn't ready for that. And the $5,000, no 55. That's the whole story right there. Do you think she'd take the full check? I almost did. Tell me below and I will read them all. Thank you so much